1 year had passed since the day Wujin saved 2 little girls in a park. So much had changed since then. The whole galaxy had changed. The alliance between the Valoran Empire and Earth was signed 3 months after the ceremony. It was the biggest event in human history. Leaders from every country gathered to watch as Empress Alan and the representatives of Earth put their names on the treaty. The terms were generous beyond anything humans had expected. The Valorans shared technology that advanced Earth's science by decades. Clean energy, advanced medicine, faster transportation. Things that humans had dreamed about for centuries became reality almost overnight. In return, Earth opened its doors to Valoran visitors, students, and traders. Cultural exchange programs began. Young Valorans came to Earth to study human art, music, and history. Human students traveled to the Empire to learn about alien sciences and philosophies. The Galactic Council was stunned. Earth, a planet they had dismissed as too young and too primitive, now had the most powerful empire in the known universe as its ally. Other civilizations began to treat humans with new respect, and it all started with one man. But Wujin did not think about any of that as he sat on his small porch, drinking his morning coffee. His life had stayed surprisingly simple despite everything. He still worked at the spaceport, though he now had a much better position as a chief engineer. He still lived in his small apartment, though Taiho often complained that they should move to somewhere bigger. "Dad, we could live in a palace if we wanted," his son would say. But Wujin liked his simple life. He liked walking to work, knowing his neighbors, eating dinner at the same old restaurant. Fame and luxury did not interest him. He just wanted to be a good father and live peacefully. Of course, his life was not entirely the same. "Wujin, we're here." He looked up from his coffee and smiled. A shimmering portal of light appeared in his front yard, and 3 figures stepped through. Lyra, Nova, and Empress Alan herself, dressed in simple clothes instead of her royal gowns. The twins immediately ran toward the house. "Taiho, where are you?" Taiho burst through the front door and crashed into his friends. The 3 children fell into a laughing pile on the grass. Wujin stood and bowed slightly to the Empress. "Your Majesty, you honor us with your visit." Alan rolled her eyes playfully. "I told you to stop calling me that. When I am here, I am just Alan, a mother visiting her daughter's friend." Wujin smiled. Over the past year, he had gotten to know the Empress better than he ever imagined. She visited Earth often, sometimes for official business, but more and more just to see her daughters happy. And somehow, those visits always ended up at his small apartment. At first, Wujin had been nervous around her. She was the most powerful person he had ever met. But slowly, he realized that behind the crown and the title, she was just a person. A mother who worried about her children. A woman who had been lonely for a very long time. "Coffee?" he offered. "Please," Alan said, sitting down on the old chair next to him. "I have been in meetings all morning. Earth's ambassador talks even more than my own council." Wujin poured her a cup and handed it to her. She took a sip and sighed with contentment. "I still do not understand how you make this drink so well. I have tried the same ingredients on my ship, but it never tastes the same." "It's the water," Wujin said. "Earth water has a different mineral content. And maybe a little bit of love." Alan laughed. It was a sound that still surprised Wujin every time he heard it. A year ago, he could not have imagined this powerful Empress laughing over coffee on his porch. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the children play. Lyra was showing Taiho some kind of Valoran game that involved floating balls of light. Nova was braiding flowers into her hair, something she had learned from a human classmate. "They are happy," Alan said softly. "Truly happy. I have not seen them like this since their father passed away." Wujin looked at her with gentle eyes. He knew that the Emperor had died 5 years ago. leaving Alan to rule alone and raise the twins by herself. She never talked about it much, but he could see the weight of that loss in her eyes sometimes. "Kids are strong," he said. "They heal, especially when they have people who love them." Alan nodded. "That is true. You have taught me many things this past year, Park Woo-jin. About kindness, about simplicity, about what truly matters in life." She turned to look at him. "I used to believe that strength meant being alone, that needing others was weakness. But watching you with your son, I see a different kind of strength." "Being a father isn't strength," Woo-jin said. "It's love, and maybe a little bit of fear that you'll mess everything up." Alan laughed again. "Yes, I know that fear well." They were quiet again, but it was a warm kind of quiet, the kind shared between friends. "A reporter asked me last week why I favored Earth so much," Alan said suddenly. "Why I push so hard for the Alliance, why I spend so much time here. Do you know what I told her?" Woo-jin shook his head. "I told her that when my daughters were afraid and alone, it was not a king or a general who saved them. It was a father. And in that single act, he showed me the soul of his species." Woo-jin felt his face grow warm. "You give me too much credit. I give you exactly the credit you deserve." Alan reached over and placed her hand on his. "You changed my view of an entire species, Woo-jin. You made me believe in kindness again. Do you have any idea how rare that is? Do you know how many years I spent thinking the universe was cold and cruel?" She squeezed his hand gently. "You gave me hope. That is worth more than any treasure in my empire." Woo-jin did not know what to say. He was just a mechanic, just a father. He still could not understand how his simple actions had caused such big changes. "I just did what anyone would do," he finally said. "No," Alan said firmly. "You did what you would do. What your heart told you was right. And that makes all the difference." Just then, Taiho came running over, followed by the twins. "Dad, can we go get ice cream?" "Please?" Woo-jin looked at Alan, who was smiling. "What do you say? Want to get some Earth ice cream with us?" The Empress of the Valoran Empire laughed and stood up. "I would like nothing more." They walked together down the street, 3 children running ahead, 2 adults following behind. People stopped to stare at the beautiful alien woman walking beside the simple mechanic. Some recognized her and bowed. Others took pictures with their phones. But Woo-jin did not notice any of it. He was watching his son laugh with the twin princesses, watching Alan smile in the afternoon sun, and thinking about how strange and wonderful life could be. A year ago, he was a lonely widower just trying to get by. Now he had friends on another planet. His son played with princesses, and he spent his weekends drinking coffee with an Empress Dot at the ice cream shop. Lyra and Nova tried every flavor, amazed by the variety. Taiho helped them pick their favorites. Alan ordered something called chocolate, which she had developed a great love for since coming to Earth. "This is dangerous," she said, eating her ice cream with very un-Empress-like enthusiasm. "If my people knew I was addicted to frozen Earth desserts, they would question my judgment." "Your secret is safe with us," Woo-jin said with a grin dot as the sun began to set. Painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, they walked back toward the apartment. The children were tired now, their energy spent, walking hand in hand. "I have to return to the ship tonight," Alan said quietly. "There is a council meeting tomorrow that I cannot miss." "I understand," Woo-jin said, "but I will be back soon." She looked at him with those deep purple eyes. "If that is acceptable." "It's always acceptable. You're always welcome here." Alan smiled. A real, warm, genuine smile. "Thank you, Woo-jin, for everything. For saving my daughters. For changing my mind. For reminding me what is important in life." She paused. "For being my friend. Thank you for giving me the chance," Wujin replied. Most emperors would have thrown me in prison for keeping their children overnight without permission. Alan laughed. Most emperors don't have hearts. I like to think I still have one, even after all these years. You definitely do, Wujin said. I see it every time you look at your daughters. They reached the apartment just as the first stars appeared in the sky. Alan called the twins and opened the portal back to her ship. Lyra and Nova hugged Taiho tightly. We'll come back soon, Nova promised. Next time, I'll show you my new video game. Taiho said. The twins stepped through the portal with their mother. Before she disappeared, Alan turned back one more time. Goodbye, Park Wujin. Until next time. Until next time, Alan. The portal closed, and they were gone. The yard was quiet again. Taiho yawned and leaned against his father. Today was a good day. Yes, it was, Wujin agreed. Later that night, Wujin sat on his porch alone, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, among those countless points of light, was the Valoran Empire. Trillions of people living their lives, ruled by a woman who had become his friend. He thought about his wife and wondered what she would think of all this. She would probably laugh and say something like, "Only you could accidentally become friends with an empress." He smiled at the thought that his life was not grand or important. He did not lead armies or rule nations. He was just a mechanic who loved his son and tried to do the right thing. But somehow, in some small way, he had made a difference, and maybe that was enough. 3 days passed after the Empress left. Wujin went back to work at the spaceport, trying to return to his normal life. But nothing felt normal anymore. His coworkers treated him differently. Strangers on the street looked at him with curiosity. News had spread about the alien ship that had landed in his neighborhood. No one knew exactly what had happened, but rumors were everywhere. Some said he had been arrested. Others said he had done something heroic. Wujin said nothing. He just did his job and went home to his son. On the 4th day, something happened. Wujin was eating lunch in the workshop when a sleek black car pulled up outside. It was not a human car. The design was too smooth, too perfect. It was Velorn. A soldier in silver armor stepped out and walked toward him. Wujin recognized him immediately. It was Commander Revan, but this time without the cold expression. He looked almost respectful. "Park Wujin," Revan said. "Her Majesty the Empress requests your presence aboard the royal flagship. You and your son are to come immediately." Wujin's heart skipped a beat. "Is something wrong? Are Lyra and Nova okay?" Revan shook his head. "The princesses are well. This is a formal invitation, not an emergency. Her Majesty wishes to honor you properly." Wujin hesitated. He looked at his half-eaten lunch, then at the unfinished engine he was working on. His boss would not be happy if he just left. But then again, how often does someone get invited to meet an empress? "Let me get my son from school," Wujin said. An hour later, Wujin and Taiho were inside a Valoran shuttle, flying straight up through the clouds. Taiho pressed his face against the window, watching the earth grow smaller below them. "Dad, look, I can see the whole city from here." Wujin smiled at his son's excitement, but his own stomach was full of butterflies. He had never been to space before. He had never even left his country. And now he was going to a ship that ruled an empire. The royal flagship was enormous. It stretched across the darkness of space like a floating city. Lights glowed from thousands of windows. Smaller ships flew around it like birds around a mountain. When their shuttle landed in the docking bay, they were greeted by a group of guards and attendants. Everyone wore fine clothes and moved with perfect grace. Wujin felt very out of place in his old work jacket. They were led through long hallways made of white stone and crystal. Beautiful paintings hung on the walls, showing scenes from Valoran history. Servants bowed as they passed. Finally, they arrived in a massive door made of gold and silver. The door opened slowly, revealing a room that took Woojin's breath away. It was a throne room. The ceiling was so high it seemed to touch the stars. Columns of crystal lined the walls, glowing with soft light. At the far end of the room, on a platform of white marble, sat the Empress on her throne. But she was not alone. Lyra and Nova stood beside her, wearing beautiful dresses of blue and purple. When they saw Taiho, their faces lit up with joy. They ran down the steps and hugged him tightly. "Taiho, you came," Lyra exclaimed. "We missed you," Nova added. Woojin watched his son laugh and hugged the girls back. Despite all the gold and crystal around them, the three children looked just like any other kids playing together. It made him smile. Empress Alan stood from her throne and walked down to meet them. She was just as beautiful as before, wearing a gown of deep purple that matched her eyes. But there was something warmer about her now, less distant. "Park Woojin," she said. "Welcome aboard my flagship. I hope the journey was comfortable." Woojin bowed awkwardly. He was not sure of the proper way to greet an empress. "Thank you, Your Majesty. It was quite an experience." The Empress smiled. "I imagine it was. Please, come. There is much I wish to discuss with you." She led him to a private room next to the throne chamber. It was smaller but still beautiful, with soft chairs and a table set with food and drinks. The children were taken to another room to play, watched over by kind servants. Woojin sat across from the Empress, feeling like he was in a dream. Just a week ago, he was just a simple mechanic. Now he was having tea with the ruler of a galactic empire. "I must explain something to you," Empress Alan began. "My daughters were on Earth as part of a secret program. I wanted them to experience life as common people, to learn humility and understanding. They were supposed to stay hidden, protected by Commander Revan from the shadows." She paused, her eyes growing sad. "But I was delayed. A diplomatic crisis required my attention, and I could not reach Earth in time. When I learned they were in danger, I feared the worst. Then Revan reported that a human had saved them. I'm glad I could help," Woojin said simply. "You do not understand the full meaning of what you did." The Empress leaned forward. "In Valarn culture, showing kindness to strangers without expecting reward is extremely rare. Our society is built on politics and power. Everyone wants something. Everyone has a hidden purpose." She shook her head slowly. "When I became Empress, I learned to trust no one. Every smile hid a knife. Every gift came with strings attached. I began to believe that all beings were the same, selfish, greedy, only looking out for themselves." Her purple eyes met Woojin's. "But you proved me wrong. You risked yourself for children you did not know. You stood against my soldiers to protect them. You opened your home to them and asked for nothing in return. In all my years of rule, I have never seen such pure kindness." Woojin felt uncomfortable with the praise. "Your Majesty, I'm not special. I'm just a father. When I saw those girls in trouble, I thought about Taiho. I thought about what I would want someone to do if he was in danger. Any parent would have done the same. But that is exactly what makes you special," the Empress said softly. "You saw my daughters not as aliens or strangers, but as children, as people worthy of protection. That is rarer than you know." She stood and walked to a window that showed the stars outside. Her reflection shimmered in the glass. "My council has always told me that humans are primitive and dangerous. They say your species is too young, too violent, too unpredictable. For years, I believed them. I kept Earth at a distance, trading with you but never truly trusting you." She turned back to face him. "But I was wrong. If one human can show such courage and kindness, then there must be others like you. Your species has potential that I failed to see." Woojin did not know what to say. He had never thought of himself as a representative of all humanity. He was just a man trying to raise his son and live a good life. "What happens now?" he asked. Empress Alan walked back to her chair and sat down. "I have decided to honor you in a way that has only been done twice in the history of the Valoran Empire. I am naming you a friend of the Empire. This title gives you and your family protection, privileges, and a permanent invitation to the Imperial Court." Woojin's eyes widened. "Your Majesty, that's too much. I know you don't need it," she interrupted gently. "That is precisely why I'm giving it to you. You helped my daughters because it was right, not because you wanted reward. This is my way of saying thank you." She reached across the table and took his hand. Her grip was firm but kind. "But there is more. I am also going to propose a formal alliance between the Valoran Empire and Earth. Trade agreements, technology sharing, mutual defense. My council will be shocked, but I have made my decision." Woojin could hardly believe what he was hearing. "Because of what I did?" "Because of what you showed me," the Empress said. "You showed me that humans are capable of greatness, of kindness, of honor. If one man can change my mind about an entire species, then perhaps it is time I gave your people a chance." She smiled, and for the first time, it reached her eyes completely. "You have no idea what you have started, Park Woojin. By saving 2 little girls in a park, you may have changed the future of both our worlds." Woojin sat in stunned silence. He had never imagined that his simple act could have such consequences. He was just a mechanic, just a father, just a man who tried to do the right thing. But sometimes, that is all it takes to change the galaxy. Later that evening, there was a formal ceremony in the throne room. Thousands of Valorans watched as Empress Alan placed a golden medallion around Woojin's neck. The medallion bore the symbol of the Empire, marking him as one of its greatest allies. Taiho stood beside him, holding hands with Lyra and Nova. The boy was beaming with pride. When the ceremony ended, the Empress addressed the crowd. "Today we honor a man who reminds us of a truth we often forget. Kindness is not weakness. Compassion is not foolish. The greatest heroes are not always warriors with swords. Sometimes they are fathers who simply refuse to look away when children need help." She looked at Woojin with warmth in her ancient eyes. "The Valoran Empire owes Park Woojin a debt that can never fully be repaid. But we will try. From this day forward, let it be known that humanity has proven itself worthy of our friendship." And it all began with one good man. The crowd erupted in applause. The sound echoed through the massive chamber like thunder. Woojin looked around at the thousands of alien faces, the crystal columns, the stars visible through the windows. It was overwhelming. It was impossible. It was real. He squeezed Tio's hand and smiled. Maybe the universe was not such a scary place after all. Woojin woke up to a sound he had never heard before. It was deep and powerful, like thunder but smoother. The whole apartment was shaking slightly, and the dishes in the kitchen were rattling. He jumped out of bed and ran to the window. What he saw made his heart stop. A massive ship was descending from the sky. It was unlike any spacecraft he had ever seen at the spaceport. This was not a cargo ship or a transport vessel. This was something else entirely. It was sleek and elegant, made of some kind of white metal that seemed to glow in the morning sun. The design was clearly Valoran, but far more advanced than anything on Earth. Around the ship, smaller vessels flew in perfect formation. They looked like military escorts. Woojin's stomach dropped. The ship landed right in the middle of the street, outside his apartment building. People on the street were running away in panic. Cars stopped. Everyone was staring at the sky. "Dad? What's happening?" Taiho had come out of his room, rubbing his sleepy eyes. "I don't know," Woojin said. trying to keep his voice calm. Go check on Lyra and Nova. Make sure they're okay. As Taiho ran to the living room, Woojin quickly got dressed. His mind was racing. Why was a Valoran warship landing in his neighborhood? Did it have something to do with the girls? Before he could think more, there was a loud knock on his door. 3 powerful knocks that echoed through the apartment. Woojin walked slowly to the door. His hands were shaking, but he forced himself to stay calm. He had faced difficult situations before. He could handle this. He opened the door. Standing in the hallway were 6 soldiers in silver armor. They held weapons that Woojin did not recognize, advanced rifles that hummed with energy. Their faces were hidden behind helmets, but their body language was clear. They were ready for battle. In front of them stood a tall man with lavender skin and silver hair. He wore a dark uniform with golden symbols on the chest. His face was hard and expressionless, like stone. "Park Woojin?" the man asked. His voice was cold. "Yes," Woojin replied, standing as straight as he could. "Who are you? What is this about?" "I am Commander Revan of the Valoran Imperial Guard. You will hand over the children immediately." Woojin felt a flash of anger. He did not care how powerful these people were. He was not going to give 2 scared children to armed strangers without knowing they would be safe. "I'm not handing anyone over until you tell me what's going on," Woojin said firmly. "Who are those girls? Why do you want them? How do I know you won't hurt them?" Commander Revan's eyes narrowed. The soldiers behind him shifted, their grips tightening on their weapons. "You do not ask questions," Revan said. "You obey. Hand them over now, or face the consequences." Woojin did not move. His heart was pounding in his chest, but he stood his ground. "I don't care who you are or how many soldiers you have. Those are children in there. I won't let anyone take them until I know they'll be safe. If you want to shoot me for that, go ahead." There was a long, tense silence. Revan stared at Woojin with something that might have been surprise. Very few people had ever defied him. Then a voice came from behind the soldiers. A voice like music, but with an edge of command that made everyone freeze. "That will be enough, Commander." The soldiers immediately stepped aside, forming 2 perfect lines. Through the gap between them walked a woman. Woojin forgot how to breathe. She was the most beautiful person he had ever seen. Her skin was the same lavender as the twins, but somehow lighter, almost glowing. Her silver hair flowed down her back like liquid moonlight. She wore a gown of white and gold that seemed to float around her as she moved. On her head sat a delicate crown made of something that looked like crystal and starlight, but it was her eyes that struck him the most. They were deep purple, ancient and wise, filled with the weight of centuries. When she looked at him, Woojin felt like she could see straight into his soul. "You are Park Woojin," she said. It was not a question. "Yes," Woojin managed to say. Before she could speak again, 2 small figures rushed past Woojin from inside the apartment. "Mother!" Lyra and Nova ran to the woman and threw themselves into her arms. The woman's stern expression melted instantly. She knelt down and hugged both girls tightly, closing her eyes. "My daughters," she whispered. "I was so worried." "Mother." The word echoed in Woojin's mind. Mother. These were not just any Valoran children. This woman was their mother. And based on the soldiers, the ship, the crown, and the way everyone treated her, Woojin's blood ran cold. The woman was the Empress, the ruler of one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. And he had just kept her children in his tiny apartment overnight without permission. Empress Allen stood up, keeping her hands on her daughter's shoulders. She looked at Woojin again, and this time her expression was unreadable. "Commander Revan tells me you saved my daughters yesterday," she said. "He says you protected them from human attackers and took them into your home." Woojin swallowed hard. "I didn't know who they were. Your Majesty. They were just children who needed help." I couldn't leave them alone in the dark. And yet when my commander came to retrieve them, you refused. You stood against armed soldiers for children you just met. Wujin did not know what to say. I just wanted to make sure they would be safe. I'm sorry if I caused any offense. The Empress studied him for a long moment. The silence was heavy. Wujin could feel sweat forming on his forehead. He was sure he was about to be arrested, or, worse than Empress Allen did something unexpected. She smiled. It was a small smile, barely visible. But it changed her entire face. For just a moment, she was not the ruler of an empire. She was just a mother who had found her children safe. You protected my daughters without knowing who they were. You fed them, sheltered them, and treated them with kindness. And when faced with soldiers and weapons, you still refused to give them up until you knew they would be safe. She paused. In all my years of rule, I have met very few people with such courage and honor, and almost none of them were human. Wujin did not know how to respond. He just stood there, stunned. Taeho peeked out from behind his father's leg. He looked up at the Empress with wide eyes. Wow, the boy whispered. You're really pretty. Are you Lyra and Nova's mom? For a moment, everyone held their breath. Speaking to the Empress without permission was a serious offense in Valoran culture. Commander Revan's hand moved toward his weapon, but the Empress laughed. It was a soft, genuine laugh that seemed to surprise even her own soldiers. Yes, little one, she said to Taeho. I am their mother, and I understand you were very kind to my daughters last night. You made them feel welcome. Taeho nodded proudly. They're my friends now. We played and had dinner together. Can they come visit again? Empress Allen looked at Wujin, then back at Taeho. Perhaps they can. We shall see. She turned to her commander. Have the guards returned to the ship. I wish to speak with this man privately. Revan hesitated. Your Majesty, protocol requires. I am aware of the protocol, Commander. I wrote most of it. Do as I say. There was no room for argument. Revan bowed and led the soldiers away. The twins went with them reluctantly, looking back at Wujin and Taeho with gratitude in their eyes. Soon, it was just Wujin, Taeho, and the Empress standing in the hallway. May I come in? She asked. It was such a simple question. An Empress asking permission to enter his tiny apartment. Wujin nodded numbly and stepped aside. Empress Allen walked into the small living room. She looked around at the simple furniture, the old photographs, the modest kitchen. It was probably the smallest space she had ever been in. But if she was bothered by it, she did not show it. Please sit, Wujin said, remembering his manners. Can I get you something to drink? I only have tea and water. Tea would be welcome, she said, sitting gracefully on the old sofa where her daughters had slept. Wujin went to the kitchen to make tea, his hands trembling slightly. An alien Empress was sitting in his living room, the mother of the children he had rescued. What was happening to his life? When he returned with 2 cups of tea, the Empress was looking at the photograph on the wall, the one of Wujin and his late wife on their wedding day. Your wife? She asked. Yes, Wujin said quietly. She passed away 3 years ago. I am sorry for your loss. And she sounded like she truly meant it. Wujin sat down across from her. Taeho had gone to his room to play, giving the adults privacy. Your Majesty, Wujin began. I apologize for any trouble I may have caused. I truly did not know who Lyra and Nova were. If you had known, what? The Empress tilted her head. Would you have acted differently? Wujin thought about it. No, he admitted. I would have done the same thing. They were in trouble. Their status doesn't change that. The Empress nodded slowly. That is exactly what I thought you would say. And that is why I am here. She set down her teacup and looked at him with those ancient purple eyes. Park Wujin, You have done something remarkable. In a galaxy full of people who act only for their own benefit, you help strangers simply because it was the right thing to do. You showed my daughters a kindness they have rarely experienced. And you showed me that perhaps I have judged humanity too harshly. She reached out and placed her hand on his. Her skin was cool and smooth. I am in your debt, and I'll always repay my debts. Wujin shook his head. Your Majesty, I don't need any reward. I just did what any decent person would do. The Empress smiled again. And that, Park Wo. The walk to Wujin's apartment took about 15 minutes. The streets were quiet now, with only a few people and aliens walking here and there. The city lights had turned on, making everything glow in soft yellow. Taeho walked between the twin girls, talking non-stop about everything. He asked about their planet, their food, their schools, and their favorite games. Lyra answered most of his questions politely, while Nova stayed quiet, still holding her sore shoulder. Wujin watched them from behind, a small smile on his face. His son had always been friendly and curious. He made friends easily, no matter who they were. It was a gift that Wujin wished he had. When they reached the apartment building, Wujin led them up 3 floors to his door. The apartment was small and simple. There was a living room with an old sofa, a tiny kitchen, and 2 bedrooms. The walls had some pictures of Taeho at different ages, and 1 wedding photo of Wujin and his late wife. It's not much, Wujin said as they entered, but it's home. Please, sit down. Lyra and Nova looked around the apartment with curious eyes. For them, everything was strange and new. The furniture was different from what they had on their home world. The colors, the smells, the textures. It was all so foreign. But somehow, it also felt warm, safe. I'll get some ice for your shoulder, Wujin said to Nova. He went to the kitchen and wrapped some ice cubes in a clean cloth. When he came back, he gently placed it on the girl's bruise. She winced at first, then relaxed. Thank you, Nova said quietly. It was the first time she had spoken since leaving the park. You're welcome. Wujin smiled at her. Are you girls hungry? I was going to make dinner for me and Taeho. It won't be anything fancy, just some rice and soup. But you're welcome to join us. The twins looked at each other again with that silent communication they seemed to share. Then Lyra nodded. We would like that very much. Thank you. Wujin went to the kitchen and started cooking. It was simple food, nothing special. Rice, vegetable soup, and some fried eggs. But he made extra portions for the 2 guests. While he cooked, he could hear Taeho showing the girls around the small apartment. The boy was showing them his toy collection and his books about space. The twins seemed fascinated by everything, asking questions and touching objects carefully as if they were precious treasures. Dad says when I grow up, I can travel to other planets, Taeho said proudly. Maybe I can visit your home world someday. Perhaps, Lyra said with a small smile. Our world is very beautiful. We have floating cities and crystal forests. That sounds amazing, Taeho exclaimed. Wujin listened to their conversation and felt his heart warm. It was nice to hear laughter in the apartment again. Since his wife died, the place had become too quiet, too empty. But tonight, it felt alive. When dinner was ready, they all sat around the small table. Wujin showed the girls how to use chopsticks, and they tried their best even though they kept dropping their food. Taeho laughed and helped them, and soon everyone was eating and smiling. This is delicious, Lyra said after taking a bite of the soup. What is it called? It's just vegetable soup, Wujin replied. Nothing special, Nova shook her head. On our world, food is very formal. Everything has rules. This is different. This is. She searched for the right word. This is kind. Wujin did not fully understand what she meant, but he nodded. Well, you're welcome to have as much as you like. After dinner, Wujin tried to contact the girl's guardian. Lyra gave him a number, but no one answered. He tried several times, but there was only silence on the other end. "I'm sorry," he said to the twins. "I can't reach them." "Is there anyone else I can call?" Lyra bit her lip nervously. "No, there is no one else. Our guardian is the only one who knows we are here." Wujin frowned. This was strange. What kind of guardian would leave two young children alone without any way to contact them? He was starting to get worried, but he did not let it show on his face. He did not want to scare the girls. "Well, it's getting late," he said. "You can stay here tonight. I'll keep trying to reach your guardian. In the morning, if she still hasn't come, we'll figure out what to do." The twins looked relieved. "Thank you," Lyra said. "You have been so kind to us. Most humans we have met, they are not like you." Wujin sighed. "Not all humans are bad. Just like not all aliens are scary. We're all just people trying to live our lives. Some are good, some are bad. That's true everywhere in the universe, I think." Lyra nodded slowly, as if she was thinking deeply about his words. Wujin set up the sofa for the twins to sleep on. He gave them clean blankets and pillows and made sure they were comfortable. Taiho said goodnight to his new friends and went to his room. Before going to sleep, Nova grabbed Wujin's hand. Her small fingers were cold. "Sir," she said softly, "why did you help us? You don't know us. We are strangers. We are not even from your world." Wujin knelt down so he was at her eye level. "Because you needed help. That's reason enough. When I saw those boys hurting you, I didn't think about where you came from or what species you are. I just saw two scared little girls who needed someone to stand up for them. Anyone with a good heart would have done the same." Nova's eyes filled with tears. "On our world, people only help others if they expect something in return. Power, money, favors. No one helps for free." Wujin felt sad hearing this. "That sounds like a lonely way to live. Here, we have a saying. Help others without expecting anything back, and the world becomes a better place. It's simple, but I believe it's true." Nova wiped her eyes and managed a small smile. "I like that saying. Get some sleep now," Wujin said gently. "Everything will be okay." He turned off the lights and went to his own bedroom. But he did not sleep right away. He sat by the window and looked out at the night sky filled with countless stars. Somewhere out there was the home world of those two little girls. A world of power and politics where kindness was rare. He thought about his wife. She had always been the kind one in their marriage. She would have loved those girls. She would have fed them, told them stories, and made them feel safe. That was just who she was. "I miss you," Wujin whispered to the stars. "But I hope you're proud of me tonight." Outside the apartment building, hidden in the shadows of an alley, Commander Revan stood watching. He had followed them the entire way, staying invisible as he was trained to do. His eyes never left the windows of the apartment. He had seen everything: the dinner, the laughter, the kindness. And he was confused. In all his years serving the Empress, he had traveled to hundreds of worlds and met thousands of different species. Most of them were selfish, greedy, and cruel. They only cared about themselves and their own kind, especially humans. The Valaran Council often called humans primitive and untrustworthy, but this human was different. Revan had watched him step between the bullies and the princesses without any hesitation. He had watched him bring them into his home, feed them, and care for them, all without knowing who they truly were. Without expecting any reward. It was unexpected. He pulled out his communication device and made another report to the Empress. He told her everything he had seen, every detail, every word. When he finished, there was a long silence on the other end. Finally, the Empress spoke. "This human, he does not know who my daughters are? No, Your Majesty. He believes they are common Valoran children. He has no idea they are the princesses of the Empire. Another pause, and he helped them anyway. Yes, Your Majesty. The Empress's voice became softer, almost thoughtful. Continue watching. I will arrive at Earth by morning. Do not reveal yourself unless the children are in danger. Understood, Your Majesty. The transmission ended. Revan looked back up at the apartment window. The lights had gone out, and everyone inside was sleeping peacefully. He had served the Empress for over 20 years. He had seen her make decisions that shaped the fate of entire civilizations. He had seen her show mercy, and he had seen her show wrath. But he had never heard her voice sound quite like it did just now. Something had changed. Revan did not know what it meant yet, but he had a feeling that this ordinary human mechanic had just done something extraordinary. He had earned the attention of the most powerful woman in the galaxy. And for Wujin, nothing would ever be the same again. Inside the apartment, Lyra and Nova lay on the sofa under the warm blankets. They held hands as they always did when they were scared or unsure. But tonight, for the first time in a long time, they did not feel scared. Sister, Nova whispered, do you think Mother will be angry at us? Lyra was quiet for a moment. Maybe. We were supposed to stay close to Commander Revan. We broke the rules. But that man saved us, and he was so nice to us. Nova snuggled deeper into the blankets. I hope Mother is not too harsh on him. Lyra nodded in the darkness. Me too. He is a good person. Better than most people we have ever met. They lay in silence for a while, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the human city outside. Cars driving past, people talking in the distance, the hum of electricity in the walls. Lyra? Nova said sleepily. Yes? I'm glad we came to Earth. Lyra smiled and squeezed her sister's hand. Me too. And with that, the twin princesses of the Valoran Empire fell asleep in a tiny apartment on a small planet called Earth, protected by a man who had no idea how much his simple act of kindness had changed the course of history. The sun was setting over the city of New Harbor, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Park Wujin wiped the grease from his hands with an old cloth and looked at the clock on the wall. His shift at the spaceport was finally over. He had spent the whole day fixing engines and repairing landing gear on ships that came from distant planets. It was hard work, but it paid the bills. 5 years had passed since the aliens made first contact with Earth. At first, people were scared. But slowly humans and aliens learned to live together. Now it was normal to see beings from other worlds walking on the streets, shopping in stores, and even sending their children to human schools. Wujin grabbed his jacket and walked out of the workshop. He was 38 years old, with tired eyes and rough hands from years of manual labor. His wife had died 3 years ago from an illness, leaving him alone to raise their son. Life was not easy, but Wujin never complained. He just kept moving forward, one day at a time. He picked up his son Taiho from the after-school program. The boy was 9 years old, full of energy and curiosity about everything. When Taiho saw his father, his face lit up with a big smile. Dad, can we go to the park today? Please. Taiho asked, bouncing on his feet. Wujin was tired, but he could never say no to that face. Okay, but just for an hour. You have homework to do. The park was a short walk from their apartment. It was a nice place with green grass, tall trees, and a playground where children could run and play. When they arrived, Taiho immediately ran toward the swings. Laughing as he went, Wujin sat down on a bench and watched his son play. For a moment, he felt at peace. These small moments with Taiho were the best part of his day. As he looked around the park, his eyes stopped on 2 small figures sitting alone on a bench at the far end. They were young girls, maybe 8 years old. But they were not human. Their skin was pale lavender, almost purple in the fading sunlight. Their hair was silver like moonlight, falling straight down their backs. They had pointed ears and large eyes that seemed to glow softly. Woojin recognized their species immediately. They were Valorans. The Valoran Empire was one of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. They were known for their beauty, their advanced technology, and their strict society. Woojin had never met a Valoran in person before. He wondered what two young Valoran girls were doing alone in a human park. The girls looked nervous. They held hands tightly and kept looking around as if they were waiting for someone. Woojin felt a little worried for them. Where were their parents? Before he could think about it more, he noticed a group of teenagers walking toward the two girls. There were 4 of them, all human boys around 15 or 16 years old. They had mean looks on their faces. Woojin stood up slowly, his instincts telling him something bad was about to happen. The leader of the group, a tall boy with short hair, stopped in front of the Valoran twins. He crossed his arms and looked down at them with disgust. "What do we have here?" he said loudly. "2 little aliens sitting in our park." The twin girls shrank back on the bench. One of them, the slightly taller one, spoke in a quiet voice. "We are not causing any trouble. We are just waiting for someone." "I don't care what you're doing," the boy snapped. "This is Earth. This is our planet. You freaks should go back to wherever you came from." The other teenagers laughed. One of them picked up a small rock and threw it at the girls. It hit the smaller twin on the shoulder, and she cried out in pain. Woojin's blood began to boil. He started walking toward them, his steps getting faster. The leader grabbed the arm of the taller twin and pulled her roughly off the bench. She fell to the ground with a cry. Her sister tried to help her, but another boy pushed her back down. "Stupid aliens," the leader spat. "You think you can just come here and take over? You're nothing but let them go." The voice was calm but firm. The teenagers turned around to see Woojin standing behind them. He was not a big man, but there was something in his eyes that made the boys. "Who are you?" the leader asked with a sneer. "Their daddy?" "I said let them go," Woojin repeated. "They're just children. What kind of coward attacks little girls?" The leader's face turned red with anger. He let go of the girl's arm and stepped toward Woojin. "Mind your own business, old man. Unless you want to get hurt." Woojin did not move. He had spent 4 years in the military when he was young. He knew how to handle himself in a fight. But more than that, he knew he could not walk away. Not when 2 scared children needed help. "I'm only going to say this once more," Woojin said quietly. "Walk away now, and we can forget this happened." The leader threw a punch at Woojin's face. It was fast, but Woojin was faster. He stepped to the side, caught the boy's arm, and twisted it behind his back. The teenager cried out in pain and dropped to his knees. Woojin looked at the other 3 boys. "Anyone else?" They stared at him with wide eyes, then turned and ran. Woojin released the leader, who scrambled to his feet and ran after his friends, shouting threats over his shoulder. When they were gone, Woojin turned to the 2 Valoran girls. They were still on the ground, looking up at him with shock and fear in their glowing eyes. He knelt down slowly so he would not scare them. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. The taller twin nodded slowly. "Why, yes, thank you." Woojin helped them both to their feet. He noticed the smaller one was holding her shoulder where the rock had hit her. "Does it hurt?" "Let me see." The girl pulled back at first, but then allowed him to look. There was a small bruise forming on her lavender skin. Woojin frowned. "It's not bad, but we should put some ice on it," he said. "Where are your parents? Is someone coming to pick you up?" The twins looked at each other. The taller one spoke again. "Our guardian was supposed to meet us here, but she has not come yet. We do not know how to contact her." Woojin looked around the park. The sun had almost completely set now, and the streetlights were turning on. He could not just leave two young children alone in the dark dot. At that moment, Taiho ran over to them. "Dad, what happened? Who are they?" "Some boys were being mean to them," Woojin explained. "Taiho, this is... I'm sorry. I don't know your names." The taller twin hesitated, then said softly, "I'm Lyra. This is my sister Nova." Taiho's eyes went wide with wonder. "Wow, you're Valorans. I learned about your planet in school. Is it true you have two sons?" Despite everything that had just happened, a small smile appeared on Lyra's face. "Yes, it is true." Woojin watched as his son began asking the girls 100 questions about their home world. Children were amazing. They did not see aliens or humans. They just saw other children. He made a decision. He could not leave these girls alone in the dark, waiting for a guardian who might never come. It was not safe. "Listen," he said to the twins. "My apartment is not far from here. Why don't you come with us? You can wait there until your guardian arrives. It's getting dark and cold outside." Lyra and Nova looked at each other again. They seemed to have a silent conversation with just their eyes. Finally, Lyra nodded. "Thank you," she said. "You are very kind." Woojin smiled and stood up. "It's nothing. Come on, let's go." As they walked out of the park together, Woojin did not notice the figure watching them from the shadows. A tall man in dark clothes with the same lavender skin and silver hair as the twins. His hand rested on a weapon at his hip, but he did not move to stop them. Instead, he pulled out a small device and spoke into it quietly. "Commander Revan reporting. The princesses have been found. They are safe. A human male has taken them under his protection. I am following at a distance, awaiting further instructions." On the other end of the transmission, millions of kilometers away on a massive warship, a woman sat on a throne made of crystal. She was beautiful beyond words, with sharp features and eyes that had seen the rise and fall of empires. She was Empress Alan, ruler of the Valoran Empire and mother of the twin princesses. Her fingers tightened on the arm of her throne as she listened to the report. "A human?" she said, her voice cold. "Do not lose sight of them. I am coming to Earth personally." She ended the transmission and stared out the window at the stars. A human had saved her daughters. She did not know whether to be grateful or suspicious, but she intended to find out exactly what kind of man this Park Woojin was.